Welcome to Monday, January 29th, 2024. Can you believe we're almost done with January? This Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Hot Springs County Travel and Tourism. Reminding you, as the snow flies and the temperatures get cold, you can always find yourself in hot water at Wyoming's Hot Springs, Thermopolis. Go to thermopolis.com. Well, El Nino is really going to be ramping up as we get to the end of the week and the weekend. Until then, we're going to have a lot of scenes look just kind of like this. Blue sky, fair weather, pretty rocky mountain and high plains vistas, as the weather, at least here for the beginning of the week, is going to be under high pressure. So it's going to be pretty pleasant. I would expect that through at least Thursday, we can just mosey along here like we did over the weekend with really not worrying about the weather. However, that big jet stream pattern we showed you last week is forming in the Pacific. Things are going about as we expected, as we're going to see in the next, let's say 8 weeks or so, maybe a little longer than that, we're going to see the El Nino weather pattern that you've heard a lot about finally really show itself in terms of what we tend to see during the mature part of winter with the maturing El Nino. Now, as we get later in the spring, later in the winter, it's going to weaken rapidly. But the next couple of months is when it's really going to be showing itself. This is going to bring possible travel and livestock impacts into the Intermountain West this weekend and into early next week, really upending the really nice weather we have now. We're going to have very heavy rains along the West Coast. Significant rains and snows will be moving into the Great Basin states, the desert Southwest, really changing things up quite a bit. Now, one thing that's a bit interesting in this pattern, but it is to be expected in an El Nino, during an El Nino season, is the Pacific influence is so strong, it's going to keep very cold Canadian air at bay. So there's going to be some of you that are going to experience rain, not snow, out of this pattern here over the next 7 to 10 days. And we'll show you why that's going to be. Stay tuned for details. What do I mean by that? Well, I am on purpose here, I am not going to show you precipitation maps yet for the weekend into early next week, just because we have some question marks to fill out, and a lot could change in a short period of time, other than to tell you that as we get closer, we'll get more detail for you as you can kind of see where you're going to fit in this weather pattern. We still have some questions we've got to figure out. More great photos coming in over the weekend. That full moon here of late really offered up some great shots. Also, we just continue to have the best sunrises and sunsets anywhere in the world. And then a good shot there of, boy, the Pryor Mountains and the Bighorn Mountains. They're really not looking very snowy up there at Bighorn Reservoir in northern Wyoming. Here we go with the jet stream. This will be as by noon today. So here's California, here's Hawaii, then going all the way back over to Japan here. So this is what we were insinuating last week, that we were just going to get this very powerful west to east flow with the jet stream forming in the central Pacific, which is something that with the warm sea surface temperature anomalies that we see right here, these are the sea surface temperature anomalies. There's your El Nino right there. We've also seen some rapid warming of the waters right here as well. So you put these two warm waters together, and this is where you're going to have that contrast with the strong jet stream winds between the colder Pacific waters up here and the warmer water towards the equator. In the meantime, though, here's the high pressure ridge that's going to be right on top of us here to start the week. So this broad area of high pressure will keep any cold weather directed to the east, high pressure in the west. So if you did not get your honey-do list done over the weekend, you've got some days here to take care of some of that yard work, or maybe your Christmas lights are still up. Here's your opportunity. Now, by Thursday, here we are today. By Thursday, notice a wholesale push of the weather that's stuck out in the Pacific right now coming into our neck of the woods. So here's that big push of low pressure into the West Coast. So by Thursday, from Vancouver to Seattle to Portland to San Francisco, here comes the rain, and pushing into the interior west a lot more strongly by Thursday. So today, Thursday, then by noon Friday. So what I want you to pay attention to is this area of part of the trough right here, because this is going to be the weather maker this weekend. So as we go into Thursday, that's where we are with this graphic. By Friday, there starts to be some separation between this low here and this other low here and this other deeper trough up in the Gulf of Alaska. Also notice this big high pressure ridge over Minnesota. We kind of have a battle of wills here. We have very strong Pacific jet stream winds right here, bumping up against this very formidable high pressure ridge. So this is where the part of the forecast that we're not quite sure yet comes into play. Because of this battle between this high pressure ridge and this low is going to want to trend this way because of the high is going to want to force it south and not allow it to go too far north. However, if just one thing changes, this could end up further north. Or if one thing changes, this thing could get directed all the way down into Big Bend country. We're getting a better idea of where we think it's going to go, but we still have some question marks. Embedded in this low here will be a lot of Pacific moisture, a lot of energy, and clockwise circulation around the high and counterclockwise circulation around the low will bring higher humidity air from the Gulf Coast region northwestward towards the front range of the Rockies and into the western high plains. Like a straw, this is going to bring moisture northward. Now, between now and Friday, this is where it's going to get wet. So through noon Friday, it just starts to get to the divide. But you can see California here, the Great Basin states, the mountains of southwest Colorado, Arizona. You're going to get into the rain and snow with the initial push east of the divide here through Friday, and then a few showers out here, not much going on. So this is through Friday. Now by Saturday afternoon, this is by 5 p.m. Saturday, we have on the European model that low. You see how it's taking a track like this, trying to cut underneath this high pressure ridge? You don't see this very often, but in an El Nino, you would expect something like this, to where you have this battle of wills here between the high pressure ridge really directing the low further to the southeast. The counterclockwise circulation, though, you see all those black wind barbs, we call them? If you were just to follow them, they come right out of the Gulf and they go all the way into Montana. The counterclockwise circulation just draws that moisture northwestward. This is a pretty neat situation in terms of how the weather could unfold. There's the precipitable water by Saturday night. And what I want to show you here from this is the connection between the Gulf of Mexico, drawing all the way up here into portions of southern Alberta and into Saskatchewan. So this is a long fetch. Think about the distance in miles between the Gulf of Mexico and up here. So that's how strong the circulation pattern is between the high and the low. Feeding that moisture northwestward and where exactly the low pressure system is going to set up is going to really dictate where the heavier precipitation will fall. So we're going to go through and show you the comparison of the computer modeling. The European model has got the low. This is by 5 p.m. Saturday, right over northeastern New Mexico. And there you can see the circulation pattern bringing upslope along the area. Now, one thing I did tell you is that since the Pacific is so dominant, you see these bright colors up here in southern Canada? There's no blue colors. There's really no opportunity for any cold air to come south because the flow is so strong from the south. This is why there's going to be a big warm-up ahead of this low. A lot of cold Pacific air coming in on the backside of the system. So a lot of key ingredients are in place here to create a lot of weather. But the devil's going to be in the details. So the European by 5 p.m. Saturday. The Canadian is stronger. You see how there's a darker green color? It's further east, but it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 closed rings here of black, while the European just has one. The American model, the GF model, and the Canadian are very similar now. A little bit further south, a little bit stronger, but the circulation of the flow is very robust upslope into Wyoming, Colorado, and maybe Montana, depending on whether the low sets up down here or a little bit further north or ends up further south. So what we have to figure out here between now and the end of the week is the exact placement of that. And I do expect that the models are going to kind of go back and forth, not really lock on into this for the first couple of days. So the bottom line is this: we've got changes coming by late in the week and into the weekend, especially across this part of the country right here, in terms of increasing chances of rain and snow, depending on where you're located. And as the week goes on, we'll provide you more detail. Livestock interest, anybody with plans on traveling late this week and the weekend, you need to be prepared for some changing weather, first starting on the West Coast, then heading east through the weekend and into early next week. And that low behind this one is going to probably keep the weather very active into the following week as well. Have yourself a good Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.